And good afternoon, colleagues, everyone. So I've been tasked to represent the OSI division in this panel and to briefly talk about the involvement of our senior PTS management into the on-site inspections and to guide you through a little bit of the parts of the work that we've been doing over the course of the few years with regards to the implementation of the exercise program of the OSI. Before I actually dive into my presentation, I would just like to talk a little bit about what an on-site inspection is and what role it plays within the CTBTO. I'm sure many of you know that the on-site inspection is an essential integral element of the CTBTO verification regime. It's the so-called final element, and the reason why it's final because it only comes to place once we would need to deploy our inspectors or experts to the field to gather necessary data and information in order to conclude whether any suspicious or anomalous event has taken place and to what conclusion it drives in terms of conduct or non-conduct of the nuclear explosion or test. Now, my presentation is a bit less technical because I'm going to talk about the sort of cross-cutting aspect of where the policy and technicality means. The reason why we as I mean the OSI division included the element of the senior management engagement into this exercise program is because, there are two simple things. First, the build-up, which is and I'm going to move into the first slide. The build-up of the OSI capability has reached a level of maturity that we found is suitable to involve also senior management into understanding the concept of the OSI policy and the requirements that a potential OSI would impose on them. So this is something what we often mention within the division, and any on-site inspection would not be an activity purely conducted by our division, but it's a PTS-wide activity requiring the full support of all of our colleagues, whether that is the technical departments, divisions of IDC or IMS, but also our colleagues from administration, logistics, procurement, finance. It is really an overarching and over-encompassing effort. Now, I've already mentioned that the operating framework established for these tabletop exercises that you will see on the following slide was our exercise program that was approved for the period of 2022 and 2025. And apart from the equipment testing, human testing, trainings, the tabletops with our senior management was included to be conducted and held in years 2022 and 2023. The basic premise, as I have also said, is simple. In order for an effective OSI to be run on the ground, that is in field with our inspector, we would also need to rely on our senior manager who must be ready to lead, decide, and communicate under very unprecedented time pressure. Unprecedented, I say it because the treaty gave us this beautiful gift of having very stringent timelines when it comes to the deployment of an OSI. And really, many times we're talking about hours from the receipt of an official request for an OSI, within which the DG, which would be in function, would need to acknowledge the receipt, convene the Executive Council, and also deploy all the necessary human and technical capacity into the field. So hence the unprecedented reference. Our principle within the context of these tabletop exercise was to achieve two, if I can summarize it, main goals. One is to improve the internal understanding, the PTS, that is the PTS understanding of an OSI, what it actually means in practice, and also to build up on the technical capabilities that we have already achieved, and obviously are continuing to work on further strengthening them. And the second objective was to prepare the PTS senior management for the two integrated field exercises. One we've already successfully held last year in Hungary, that was the build-up exercise. It was a partial scope integrated field exercise. And the second one we are preparing for is the next integrated field exercise to be conducted next year, hopefully in Namibia. I say it hopefully because we are still awaiting our formal approvals from our host country colleagues, that is the government of Namibia. So moving on to the first tabletop exercise, which was titled The Role of a Senior Management During an OSI. This was held in June 2022, and it was an first time all senior PTS leadership exercise in this format. And this has to do with what I've already mentioned, that the level of maturity of an OSI has simply reached that stage where we could also think about this aspect of how we can prepare our senior managers to be responsive to an OSI request. Objectives very similar to what I've already mentioned was to familiarize, that is to be comfortable with the policies, to understand the scope of the OSI, to also get familiar with the methodologies, with the techniques, with the procedure, as well as to understand the framework of the OSI operational manual that is being developed, and then to build on that. The format that was chosen for this tabletop was a moderated discussion, moderated because it was a first-time thing. So obviously we wanted to guide our senior managers into sort of this deeper dive of the OSI intricacies. And scope-wise or substance-wise, they were presented with 8 sequential scenarios from when the IMS detected an ambiguous or suspicious event up until the arrival of the IT to the, I use a lot of acronyms in this presentation, very sorry for that. This is something that is also very OSI specific, and we often forget that not everyone is familiar with this. So the POE is the point of entry. That is the moment when the inspectors arrive to the location in a country or in a territory that they were supposed to then further conduct their inspections. In terms of participation, this was a closed format tabletop exercise. As I mentioned, the targeted audience was the PTS senior managers, so the secretariat officers, and we've had wide participation. The ES was present, of course. We had our PTS directors, division coordinators, section chiefs, and many other also PTS staff colleagues. I will not talk about in detail about the relevant areas, but I wanted to touch a little bit on the outcomes. Both of the tabletops confirmed that the PTS has a wide responsibility when it comes to an OSI, so way beyond the OSI divisions. Leadership, of course, it's central, not only on a technical, but also on the policy level. And another sort of reconfirmed factor was that the expedited processes are really needed to be established within the OSI to allow to accommodate to this very stringent timeline. Another perhaps bit of a more substantive aspect or outcome was that the tabletop exercise identified the role or perhaps a room for improvement to build this strong IDC analytical capability to support the OSI not only during the launch phase, but also during the inspection phase as an essential part of the headquarters support. Now, moving on to the tabletop exercise on senior management responsibility, which was held practically immediately after the first one, right after in 2023, this was in December. It was actually requested by our PTS senior management, by the ES itself, who saw value in engaging managers into this effort as a our stepping stone towards the BOE and the IFE. The format has been a bit slightly challenging, if I can call it this way. So we've moved from moderated to directed, giving the participants that have been either playing their role which they have within the PTS or role assigned for the context of the exercise, roles and responsibility that they had to navigate. Obviously, this was supported by the facilitators and moderators who have sort of guided the discussions into these scenarios, and also they were presented with the opportunity to review the outcomes. It focused on the 4 scenarios surrounding the aspects of public information management, response to the inspected state party allegation, and risk management, with similar wide participation within the senior level of a PTS. Again, it was a closed format to encourage open and frank discussion within the secretariat. Now, the key outcomes, Many factors were reaffirmed from the previous tabletop exercise, but it was also acknowledged widely that it's very important to lead the effort once the on-site inspection is triggered in a proactive way. Fact-based and consistent messaging is also essential and key. Clear policies, and verification mechanism needs to be defined. The enhanced capability of the IDC was also reaffirmed. And the participants also identified the need to sort of adopt flexible approaches to de-escalation to preserve the integrity of the inspection. This is paramount because the inspector oftentimes in the field are faced with a situation that one cannot predict but needs to handle, and for that headquarters support is essential if not paramount. Moving on from these tabletop exercises, we've already had then our first opportunity to test, although I have to say in a somewhat limited format, these skills that the senior manager was training at our last integrated, this is the in-field exercise in Hungary last year, the build-up exercise, where we put them in practice, focusing mostly on the areas of handling media and public communication, on sensitive inspection findings. This is, I think, very similar to any inspection. There's a lot of question. We also need to acknowledge that the inspector state party has these rights and obligation as the treaty accords it. And also to make sure that our state signatories or member states then would naturally also ask questions related to the inspection. And this all in all, this has to be balanced against the sort of the confidentiality aspect of the on-site inspection as such. The outcomes, as I said, and this is a lesson learned that we carry forward towards the preparation of the IFE, where the need to focus on a strengthened leadership. I think this is an ongoing task, and no matter what. The enhanced coordination and decision-making agility was a success, I want to say. I think we've all, enhanced the internal sort of communication channel as well as collaboration within the respective divisions. And it was a valuable experience, of course, for the IFE. With that sort of brings me into conclusion. I think the main takeaways from these efforts, which we'll also incorporate and try to implement to the widest possible extent within the IFE, was that the organization-wide extent support is essential and crucial in order to deliver a successful, not only an exercise, but an on-site inspection if that situation is to arise. It requires both, and a successful OSI requires both technical expertise and as well as streamlined internal processes and policy and decision making within the PTS as such. And I think with that, the rest, maybe I'll be able to inform you in 2 years' time, or our SNT, our successes and failures, hopefully not, or challenges that we've faced or encountered during the IFE. And with that, I thank you so much for your attention.
So I think we have a couple of minutes for some questions. You can announce. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this very good presentation. My question is that, do you have a plan to document all these? Because as you know, our organization is not a career organization and people may change each time, so documentation is very important.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. Absolutely very valid question. I have to admit, personally, I was not involved in this tabletop exercise because I only joined PTS after, so you're absolutely right. But yes, there is extensive reporting, including from these both tabletop exercises. There is an extensive report on the build-up exercise, and we will obviously have an also report on the IFE, including a dedicated section or part on the involvement specifically of the senior managers. So I would be welcome to refer you to this document afterwards, you will, but they are accessible also on the ECS platform if you want to study them.
Okay. So I see nobody else, so thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.